not know exactly until nice to see you.
Look at all these faces. Yay. Thank you for making the effort to be here. We're so pleased to see many of the people that fans have been gathered to celebrate her remarkable life. I'm proud to have the honor of introducing our first guest artist. He and I go back a long way. Billie adored the phenomenal singer that Jeff Harner is, and so do I. Please bring to the stage Mr. Jeff Harner.
I just have to say, if you would turn around, I know you probably saw the picture of Billie as you were coming in, but the optic looking back at it, it's life-size, and it looks like she's... You're just too marvelous for words, like glorious, glamorous, and that old standby amorous. It's all too wonderful, I'll never find the words that say enough, tell enough. I mean, they just aren't swell enough. You're much too much, and just too very, very, to ever be in Webster's dictionary. And so I'm borrowing a love song from the birds to tell you that you're marvelous, too marvelous for words. Like adorable and amorous and glorious and glamorous, they're insufficient when applied to you. To be euphemistical, to be eulogistical, I'd have to come up with a million words I never thought I knew. I try to be logical and sensible, I'm incomprehensible whenever I begin to find a phrase. For they never say enough, they never tell enough. I already told you no vocabulary swell enough. What'll I do to say the things I have in mind? It's really absurd, there isn't a word to fit you. No matter where I look, I only seem to find delectable, delirious, magnificently mysterious. You're simply too spectacular to be in my vernacular. So you see, I'm forced to go to the birds. The reason must be quite apparent, for you are just too utterly, utterly wonderful and marvelous for words. You're just too marvelous for words. Like rapturous, fabulous, your voice tintinabulous. It's all too wonderful, an ordinary word. Like magical, mystical, seems much too aphoristical. The sweetest words in Keats and Shelley's lyrics aren't sweet enough to be your panegyrics. And so I'm borrowing a love song from the birds to tell you you're colossal. You've made our dreams all possible. You're too marvelous for words. Thank you very much. This is David Gaines at the piano today. I I would like to read something that Leslie Alexander wrote for today. She said, Billie was born in a trunk at the Princess Theater in Pocatello, Idaho. I kid you not, that's there. Billie was born June 6, 1924 in New York City and grew up with two older sisters, Mona and May. Papa Joseph was a musician who played in klezmer bands and spent time in the Catskills, where the work was. Mama, Rose, whom Billie wrote extensively about in her self-published memoir, Hello Mama, Goodbye, worked as a building super after Papa died and was a lifelong teacher's aide for the disabled. Billie had show business aspirations and worked for over a decade in the Goodman. Lots of celebrities. She tried to live in California, and it's damp. Working as a secretary for some major comedy writers, but she returned to her beloved New York City where more careers. Manager to talent like Arlene Francis and Bess Meyerson, and one as an executive assistant at Warner Books, which spoke to one of her many talents as a writer. In 1957, Billie accompanied one of Goodman's clients who was to appear as a guest on the Ed Sullivan Show. She was having a hard time hearing herself think backstage because the crowd was screaming a lot. Billie was introduced to the young man causing all the fuss on stage. She said he was very polite and he called her ma'am. She wasn't sure if he was a good singer or not because she said the crowd never stopped screaming, but meeting Elvis didn't seem to faze her. Now, please welcome Andrea Marcovici with some thoughts from one of Billie's most celebrated clients. Andrea Marcovici.
This is a missive from one of Billie's lifelong friends. I first met our beloved Billie in 1954 when I was new to the Big Apple, hoping to get my foot in the door of this thing we call show business. She worked for a management company at the time as their all-round Girl Friday. One of the agents, Arthur Willie, took me under his wing and gave me sage advice whenever I met with him. I began a friendship with Billie that lasted ever since that time. We would get together for lunch. Well, actually, we brown bagged it in the office. BLTs and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. She was the embodiment of encouragement. When I got my first big break in an off-Broadway show, Once Upon a Mattress, Billie was cheering me on that first exciting opening night. In the ensuing years, she never missed a taping of the Gary Moore show, where I was hired as a regular performer. After I relocated in California, we would either correspond by snail mail or spend time sharing thoughts long distance on the telephone. She loved her mother more than anything in this world and wrote about her beautifully. Billie could really write. I remember calling her on her 80th birthday. She sounded like she was 20. She was forever young and forever beautiful. I'm so glad we had this time together. Carol Burnett. Billie always said, I don't know how I got so lucky to be surrounded by so many young and talented friends. And I know there's somebody really young here. And there's something wonderful about having somebody really young here. It makes me feel just right to sing this song. And Billie had this nature. A little slower, David. A little slower still. You make me feel so young. Oh, that's my mommy. You make me feel there's songs to be sung. You make me I lost my lyric already. You make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung, and that spring is sprung. You have to worry when you start singing at memorials, you know, because the next one is going to be yours. Yes, it is. You make me feel so young, Mommy. You make me feel that spring has sprung, and every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I wanna go play hide and seek. I wanna go and bounce the moon, just like a toy balloon. You and I are just like a couple of tots running across a meadow, picking up lots of forget-me-nots. Oh, you make me feel so young. You make me feel there's songs to be sung, bells to be rung, and a wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today, 'cause you make me feel so young. I'm actually getting into the gray thing. I'm kind of liking it. Picking up lots of forget-me-nots. Oh, you make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung, bells to be rung, and a wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today, 'cause you make me feel so... What was that word? I forgot it. Young. It's so funny how the mind works, you know, because you're really thinking about something else when you're trying to sing. I'm thinking about the last time I saw Billie. And I went with Leslie down to see her, and it's such a complex feeling when you know that somebody is, let's not mince words, dying. I mean, you know somebody's dying, and it's not an easy thing. You want to go see somebody, you want to stay cheery, you want to stay happy, and you want to put a bright face on it, but it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And I got there with Les, and I thought, okay, steel yourself, make yourself strong, and make yourself bright and happy. And of course, she was so bright and happy. She was so full of piss and vinegar. And she was still her same old self. And we got there and we had this most wonderful time. I sang for her, we chatted, we had this most terrific time. And as we were leaving, she said, no, wait, I've got something for you. She said, oh, open this closet door. There's a tuxedo for you. You gotta try it on. You're gonna look great in this tuxedo. Well, there it is. You've gotta wear this tuxedo. So I tried it on right away, and of course it looked really good. And I said, I will wear it, I promise you. Well, promise me that you're gonna wear this tuxedo. I said, I will. And as I started to go out, wait, there's a blouse. Wait, there's a scarf. Wait, and I swear to God, she wanted me to take her whole damn closet. So I got away clean with a few things, but I almost had to take the whole closet. Well, now we have some recorded thoughts from another one of Billie's friends, Robin Field.
One night, just like in the musicals, a dark-haired woman came in, saw my act and asked me to sit at her table. After introducing ourselves, she said, "I'm a personal manager and I've got a lot of integrity. When I see real talent, my antenna goes up, and I think you're a great talent. I see you as the kind of all-around entertainer who can sing, act, do comedy, like a male Carol Burnett." I should have said, "It's probably the hair." Instead, I thought, she used the word integrity. She may not mean exactly what I mean by it, but just the fact that she used it means she thinks it's important. Plus, she sees me the way I do. I said, "Take me, I'm yours." She laughed, and we spent the next few weeks getting together for coffee and talks. Billie Biederman had worked for the Martin Goodman talent agency for nearly 20 years, then branched off on her own as a personal manager. I learned that she had been part of the early careers of Carol Burnett and Jonathan Winters. She now represented such TV personalities as Hugh Downs, Arlene Francis, Bess Meyerson, Julia Mead, and others. She introduced me to some of her show business friends, singer Kay Arman, producer George Spoda, and managers Laura Springer and Helen Keane. They were all impressed with me. I had a hard time believing this was all really happening. She listened to me sing and play much of my repertoire at a piano in a friend's apartment. And she introduced me to her aging mother, Mama Biederman, from the old country. Billie and Mama lived together in Stuyvesant Town on the east side of Manhattan. Years later, Billie wrote a beautiful book about her mother called Hello, Mama, Goodbye. On May 1, 1969, contracts were signed, and Billie became my manager for 20 years. She worked tirelessly for me out of her own apartment, mostly by scouring the trade papers every week, writing letters and making phone calls. Billie and I talked constantly about how much I was learning from being in a long-run show. She had me over to dinner frequently, and Mama Biederman made me feel like one of the family. She'd say, "What I wish for you, I wish for my own children." And, "You shall go the good hour and come back in the better one." And, "Eat, darling. Don't sit on your ceremonies." And Billie taught me how to understand the legalese of show business contracts. She wanted me to be able to question even the fine print, in case someday she couldn't be there for me. Billie's friend Laura Springer arranged for me to audition for a new television show called The Clowns. It was to be a variety circus special. One evening I got a call at the communal phone in the sleazy hallway of the Marlton Hotel. It was Billie. "Robin," she said, "what would be the best news I could possibly give you?" It took me a second. "I got the part?" "You got the part!" But a snag nearly ended the whole thing. Billie Biederman combed through every word of the contract and found 12 deal breakers, clauses she wouldn't accept on my behalf. For instance, the producers wanted us to wear masks so we'd never be seen, and only lip sync to other singers' voices, making us completely replaceable. Why, I thought, had they put us through all those auditions if they didn't need our faces or voices? But I worried that Billie might ruin the whole opportunity by demanding too much. "I'd be willing to do this for nothing," I whined. She told me to trust her. They had to respect me as a professional. Billie got the agents of the other clowns to agree to let her negotiate for all of us a most favored nations clause, and went into the private meeting. She came out victorious. The producers had agreed to every change, saying they wished she were working for them. Billie and I remained loyal to each other throughout my career and beyond. I used to say that she stuck with me through thin. She once told me that I was America's most discovered talent. She was more than a manager. She was a mentor, a teacher, a best friend, a surrogate mother, and that rarest of the rare, particularly in show business, someone who lived up to the meaning of the word integrity.
Hi, my name is Andrew Roderick. A little more than 8 years ago, Leslie introduced me to Billie. She needed some technical assistance with her computer. I thought it would be an easy fix. I started as her tech assistant, but we formed a very special friendship over the years. I moved to New York City from St. Louis, Missouri, and I had no family nearby. But Billie promised to be my surrogate family, and she self-proclaimed herself as my adopted Jewish grandmother, a term that I cherish. Through Billie, I met another friend of hers from St. Louis, Mr. Bob Essman. Unfortunately, Bob could not be here with us today, but he asked me to speak on his behalf. For my good friend, Billie Biederman, from Bob Essman. Billie Biederman's early working life in show business was, as she described, behind the scenes. In her 20s, she organized files for comedy writers, a job that almost cost her her sense of humor. Saved, she said, by Jonathan Winters, one of her clients and friends. I first met Billie in the mid-1980s when my friend, her client, Robin Field, invited me to join him as her guest at the Big Apple Circus. My friendship with Billie began that night and lasted for over 30 years. Billie was then into her second career as assistant to the president of Warner Distribution Services. All through her life, she collected a coterie of friends, many young people, who she guided, chided, coerced to be better, and enjoyed their company as they enjoyed hers. Especially when a gang joined her for sushi at her favorite restaurant. Billie left showbiz in the 70s to care for her ailing mother, Rose, who had spent her life as a caregiver for children with cerebral palsy. During this period, Billie began writing short pieces or essays, which became a collection of stories about being a caregiver to a caregiver. For over 20 years, she worked on a draft of the book Ludlow Street, a wonderful collection of her memories of growing up on the Lower East Side. As a graphic designer, I helped her get the manuscript into format for publication. Seeing her words typeset for the first time, she lit up with the need to complete her Mama book first. We worked together on that book for over a number of years. Her words in print sparked her vision, understanding better how to order the stories. I suggested adding pictures, the ones that she so lovingly had everywhere on the walls and stuffed into books on the shelves of her apartment. She often resisted new ideas or suggestions, but a couple of weeks later, she loved the thoughts. My favorite was her resistance to my suggestion for the cover. Not long after, she couldn't see the book titled Hello Mama, Goodbye, which she self-published in 2007 and is still available on Amazon, without that cover. It was so Billie. My last visit with Billie was in May of 2017. She spent all day getting ready and was stunning when I picked her up to attend the Dutch Treat Club's annual dinner. She insisted on walking to 20th Street to find a cab. And surprised me how fast she walked. When we arrived at the Harvard Club, she worked the room, and in her inimitable style, flirted with TV actor Raul Esparza when she introduced herself and engaged him in a long, animated, intimate conversation. Speaking with her later that summer, she cavilled about that evening and many Dutch Treat members who so warmly greeted her. She never believed she belonged in such rarefied company, referring to Dutch treaters as heavy hitters with no agenda. She did indeed belong. During our last talk, shortly before she died, she assured me that she was almost done editing Ludlow Street. We are all better for her presence in our lives. Now, will you please welcome a young man who Billie considered her good friend and her own personal Perry Como, Paul Croker.
I would like to read this on behalf of Billie's former boss and cherished friend, Lee Rogers. My life, like everyone's, has been filled with dramatic moments that have been turning points that have changed the direction of our experiences and have had profound influences on the rest of our lives. One such crossroad for me, when I, after leaving Scribner's, went to Warner Communications, deeply aware of the differences in culture of these two very different places, and not quite sure about what to expect. Warner's had brought on a temp for me, until I found someone that I was comfortable with, someone reported to be experienced in the entertainment business. And this temp turned out to be even a more significant turning point, as the temp was Billie Biederman. And that was the start of a love affair that has existed now for 35 years. Human Resources kept sending these perfectly qualified people to interview, but there was no one as competent and enjoyable as Billie. And finally, I decided this was silly and jumped from my desk, walking with great purpose and determination, headed for the door, and as I turned the corner, ran smack into Billie, and she decided that she wanted to work here and was coming to tell me to hire her. And I'm still not sure who was working for whom. Some good things. And she became the best friend of everyone in my family, coming to San Francisco for the wedding of our sons, an advisor to everybody. She was my protector. Anytime that a rumor surfaced and was brought to Billie's attention where someone criticized me or one of my decisions, they, at a minimum, were subjected to Billie's evil eye and probably exiled and would not get past her door to see me for months. I still remember her voice now at unexpected times, as when I get self-critical or gloomy about the prospects of coming events. Don't sentence yourself with sentences. And when unfortunate things would occur, the universe has odd ways sometimes it will turn out all right. As I was leaving for an important trip or a meeting in a great rush, she would say, to ensure that I had what I needed, spectacles, testicles. And I was ready to go. I'm now 82 and have met some wonderful people, but few have meant more to me, and few had the combination of ethics, backbone, style, sense of humor, and loving compassion as Billie Biederman. Dear Billie, I know the universe is taking care of you, and that you know we are trying to live up to the legacy that you have left us, showing us how to make this journey. Peace, Lee Rogers. There are a couple Billie-isms that have meant a lot to me in my life too, and one was, and for someone who has trouble living in the moment and spending a lot of time in the past and a lot of time in the future, these, she would say, you can't dig up a seed to see if it sprouted, and you can't pull apart the petals of a flower and call it blooming. And I'll definitely carry those ideas with me for as long as I'm around, and pass them on to the little noisemaker who's in the back. This was a cherished song of Billie's, and I'm just going to sing it. It seems that I read, or somebody said, that out of sight is out of mind. Well, maybe that's so, but I tried to go and leave you behind. What did I find? I took a trip on a train, and I thought about you. I passed a shadowy lane, and I thought about you. 2 or 3 cars parked under the stars, a winding stream, moon shining down on some little town, and with each beam, same old dream. At every stop that we made, at every stop that we made, I thought about you. But then when I pulled down the shade, well, I really felt blue. So I peeked through the crack and looked at the track, the one headed back to you. And what did I do? I thought about you.
Go, Billie!
Just thinking about you, Billie. And now please welcome Billie's closest friend in all the world, Bill Doherty.
That's fair. I think we were all Billie's favorite persons in the whole world. She made us feel that way. This young man, by the way, was my very first student in my very first class at NYU. I don't want to say how many years ago, but couldn't be prouder. Yay. Bravo. These are a few words from Billie's lifelong friend, the talented and adorable Libby Morris. Dearest Billie, it was a sad day when Bill informed me that you had left us. Naturally, I grieved for some time. You meant so much to me. But later I realized that you were with your dear departed family and friends, and I started to feel better. So many memories of our long friendship came into mind. Memories of your visits to London, my visits to New York, our long talks, trading confidences, our tears and laughter, and our arguments, but always with love. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. You were the sister I never had. I'll never forget the times we had together. I will miss you and love you till the day I die. Rest in peace, darling. Love always, Libby. So, I won't be singing today. No surprise to those of you who... called me too tender-hearted. I suppose. But I'll do my best to plow through with a few words. No guarantees. Something Billie made me promise her early on in our friendship was that should the day come where she could no longer speak for herself, I had to promise I would not allow anybody to dress her up and put funny little hats on her. No, she was serious. I thought she was joking, but she said she was quite adamant about it, and I assured her that that would be an easy promise to keep. I did. I kept my promise. Carol did. Carol was there, and her nephew Scott. Lorraine was there. We never put funny hats on her. And her beloved caregiver, Marietta, was there. And they all attest to the fact that at no time in her last hours did we put a funny little hat on her. But she never said I couldn't wear one. I need a pinch hitter in a second. All right, here we go. It's only fitting that I have the honor of speaking on behalf of my friend because I don't know how many of you know, but some years ago I finally convinced Billie to write my eulogy for me. I know, she laughed and told me I was too young to think about something like that. And I explained to her, I said, you know, when I leave the planet, I want everybody to know you through my eyes. Nobody's ever going to know you better. And she marveled at that thought. But then she thought about it. She realized that after 30 years of friendship and peaks and valleys, emotional roller coasters, coats too, road trips, nightly marathon phone calls, and becoming permanent fixtures in one another's lives, that there was bound to be some truth in what I told her. I always said to her, I don't care what anybody does with me when I die. You can throw me over the back fence, but I want them to know me through your eyes. So I finally had enough nerve to read that the day, shortly after Billie passed. I had to give myself a little buffer time, but I found her file on me. She had files on all of us. It's like digging through the Gestapo records. It was the medicine I needed at the time, and I still couldn't believe it was me she rambled on about. I was half tempted just to use Billie's words about me today for her because I could have easily applied them, but she would have called me out for plagiarism even from the great beyond. So a few of my own thoughts will have to suffice. Billie came to me into my life as a byproduct of my partnership with Robin Field. She was a constant during Doherty and Field years, having been, as you know, his personal manager before I moved to the city. Now, when he bowed out of the act and left New York City, he was silly to leave New York, but he left New York City. Billie and I had already adopted one another and realized that she was, and he was, the unknowing matchmaker for us. Yeah, she always said that we were soulmates, and we had just finally found one another thanks to Robin. And as opposed to Robin, Billie got me through thick. One of the things we had in common was we both could never quite figure out how come we found each other so irresistible. I mean, a rapidly aging twink and an alta caca. She sometimes would tell people we'd meet while we were out and about that we were Harold and Maude in the flesh, except without the sex. I used to get a laugh until we observed a decade into that angle that no one knew what we were talking about. Not too many months ago, during one of our late night phone calls, we came to the realization that we had never had a fight. Not once. Not a single unkind word or ruffled feather between us. It further cemented the fact and the notion that whatever we might have had in differences before were taken care of in a past life, and so we could just move on. Something Billie and I loved to do was dredge up old songs and play Name That Tune with each other. Oh, this story. One night, this is 20 years ago or more, we were having one of our marathon phone calls, and it was probably around 2 or 3 in the morning, and we were trying to stump one another with an old song. At one point, Billie said, okay, how about this one? I saw you last night and got that, and I sang along with her, that old feeling. Shortly after that, she said, okay, how about this one? I saw you last night. And I said, Billie, you already did that one. She was, oh, right, you're right. Okay. Not 5 minutes later, she said, okay, how about this one? I saw you. Well, I lost it and started laughing uncontrollably, and then she did too, realizing she'd done it yet again. So I'm sure anyone in the apartments below or above us were jolted out of their beds. Laughter. That became our trigger song for whenever one of us repeated ourselves in a conversation. I sang it to her often. And this is something I know I'll dine out on for years. I mentioned this at Billie's 90th, but for those who weren't there or were, this bears repeating. About a year after I left NYC, Billie called me up one night and asked me, Billie, what do you think the actual expiration date of a can of coffee would be if it had been kept in the refrigerator since it was opened? And I told her that since I wasn't a coffee drinker, I couldn't answer that. And knowing that she wasn't either, I asked her why she had a can of coffee in her refrigerator. And she told me it was left over from when her cousin Orna had been to visit from Israel. And so I did a little math in my head and I said, wasn't that over 3 years ago? And she said it was closer to 4. And I asked her, I said, well, what's the expiration date on the can read? And she said, it was about 3 years prior. But, she said, I opened the lid and took a whiff and it still smelled fresh and delicious. I said, well, it might smell okay, but it probably won't taste all that good. And I said, you thinking of making a pot of coffee? And she said, no. She was thinking of offering it to one of her neighbors. And I told her that probably wasn't a good idea. They might not appreciate the fact that, it was 4-year-old coffee. And I asked her how much is in there, and she said, easily half a can. And when I told her a can of coffee was probably only about $3.50, she's, and we're talking about $1.75 here, she goes, that's not the point. I don't want to waste anything. It's not the money, which, as we all know, is a prevalent trait of Billie Biederman's. If there was 1 ounce of life left in anything, be it a bed sheet, a computer, a can of coffee, it went against her DNA to toss something out that might have been of use to someone. So then she decided she would leave it anonymously in the laundry room. With a note on it saying that even though it was expired, there was a good chance there were still a few cups of coffee to be enjoyed in this can of Folgers. And I insisted that that would not be the thing to do, and she just resigned herself to pitching it. She sighed and thought I was probably right. Okay, so the next night she calls me up, and the first thing she says is, well, I was on the phone with Folgers this afternoon. Before she could get another word out, I fell out. I don't know why I was so amused or surprised by hearing it, but I just kept laughing. And that was perfectly within keeping for what I knew Billie's modus operandi to be. But she went on, undeterred by my giggles, and she said, I was on hold for 45 minutes before I got this lovely girl. Her name was Annette, and she has a wonderful conversation with her describing what she did and what her ambitions were. And then finally I said, well, what did Annette say to do with the coffee? She goes, oh, she thought I should probably just let it go. I agreed, and we went on to the next order of business for the night. We had so much in common. We liked the same movies, some of the same authors, all of the same songs, and we both loved to write. We would often read one another something that we had written the night before, just to bounce it off one another. She would turn to me and trusted others when she was finishing Mama's book, and she relied on our input, as so often I did hers. I wish all of you could have been there the day that she did a guest lecture and book signing for her memoir in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania for the local ladies' book club. Oh, she was in her glory. I dedicated my first published novel to Billie and thanked her for years of support. She loved words, as you all know, but she taught me how to love the process of editing. Clearly I'm not applying it today, but she likely would have taken a red pen to much of what I've written. But I do miss Billie. I miss her terribly. I miss the silly things that we used to do. I miss not being able to pick up the telephone and tell her something monumental that happened in my life, or maybe even something so small yet profound, for all its simplicity. I miss hearing the Billieisms for the 1,000th time and gladly suffering through them for the 1,000th and one. I miss our dinners at Honey. I miss going through the mental alphabet with her when we were trying to recall a favorite movie star whose name eluded us. We'd go A, Albert, Adam, Alan, B, Bob, Brent, Bart, until we hit pay dirt. I miss not having someone in my life who I never had to explain myself to. And yet, of course, we all know Billie poured herself into each and every one of us with an infectious generosity that will never dissipate. She planted seeds in souls and harvested a garden of lifelong friends. She set an example of how one could age gracefully yet never grow old. She honored each new encounter with a person or an infant as an opportunity to learn and to teach. We all have our Billie stories to carry with us and to help carry us through life. She used to say that she was the wealthiest woman on the planet because of her riches that her friends and her family brought to her. Her attitude was indeed gratitude, and so because of Billie, mine shall always be as well. Almost there. Almost there. I am a better person for having known her, and what finer testament to a life might we hope to achieve than to have that said about us. I made it, Billie. I don't know what you want. Oh, Lord. Thank God I didn't sing. Okay. This is for sissies. Okay. It is now my pleasure to welcome someone who Billie held dear to her heart, and the woman mainly responsible for this event coming to be, the beautiful and lovely Leslie Alexander.
Follow Bill down. That's so 80s, isn't it? I don't usually do this, so just let me know if I'm too close or too far away from this mic. I met Billie back in 89 or 90 at a writing class, and we became close friends. What is that? Almost 30 years. We didn't quite make it 30 years. Sorry. And we talked about so many things. The fact that Billie was actually a theatrical manager for many years didn't even come up in conversation for 2 years. And then we suddenly discovered that we had all these mutual friends because I spent my life in show business as well. And over the years, I'm sorry, my focus is gone here. I'm just going to try to read what I wrote. I spent 25 years reviewing and covering theater and cabaret and describing shows for the blind. And so I was invited to a lot of theater and cabarets, and more often than not, Billie was my date. Broadway and off-Broadway and the Algonquin and the Regency and Don't Tell Mama and the 92nd Street Y. We would go everywhere. We'd grab a bite, and at Billie's insistence, she'd grab the check. And if I ever managed to get away from her, I got that evil eye that's been discussed. And this went on for many, 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 many years. And whenever I spoke to her, she said, "My Leslie," and I said, "My Billie," and off we went. Now, as the years went by, she got more picky. And she said, "Who's in the show?" And my favorite question, "Well, I like it." So I had to be more careful with the things that I had her come to. For many years, I went over to her apartment and to hook her up, which isn't what I quite meant to say. I would hook up her caller ID, and I'd hook up her VCR, and I'd hook up her digital converter, and all these things that would work with whatever equipment that she had. And sometimes our friend Jim Tatum, who flew in from the West Coast to be here over here, would come with me, and he would try to get her very ancient printer to work with whatever equipment that she had on her computer. PC guy, and she needed a Mac expert. So as Andrew mentioned, I introduced her to Andrew, and they started up this love affair. And she in turn introduced Andrew to Bill Dougherty, and they became roommates. And that's how Billie affected all of us. She kept us all together, and we were and always will be a family. So how do you sum up a life? Is it accomplishments, relationships, how much you're loved by others? In 93 plus years, Billie nurtured all those around her. It's why we're all here today, and why we all feel that Billie belonged to each of us in our own special way. But the truth is that she belonged to the world. She made friends with the bus driver, as she did with a performer or a writer, a politician, any one of us. She impacted so many lives that it's hard to choose just one story to tell, but this one really defines who Billie was. Sorry. In '92, Bill Dougherty brought Billie to meet Portia Nelson. Now, Portia, whom many of you know, was a real Renaissance woman, just like Billie. She was a club singer and a recording artist in the 50s. She was one of the nuns in The Sound of Music. And she'd spent time in Hollywood as a musical arranger, among other things. And Portia had written a book in 1977, the same year that Mama had died. And over the years, a portion of the book had been taken and made into a poster. But Portia wasn't getting any of her royalties. And the poster, which was and is extremely popular in self-help groups, was being attributed to Anonymous. Now, you may be familiar with it. It was later retitled, There's a Hole in My Sidewalk. So when Billie heard about this injustice, you're not getting your royalties? They're calling it anonymous when you wrote it? She went to work. You see, Portia had had some cancer, and she wasn't really strong enough to keep up with the legal battles and stuff. And the book itself had fallen out of print. Well, our Billie got a publisher to reissue the book. She got a lawyer to send off a cease and desist order to the printer poster company. And she made it her mission that year to see to it that Portia's rightful credit be attributed to her. That was who Billie was. Billie succeeded in that. Billie was a superhero, fighting for justice, a loyal friend, a persistent, if not stubborn, and relentless advocate for those whom she loved. She didn't know the meaning of the word giving up, and once she was on your side, you could always depend on her to dispense wise advice. She will always be our Billie.
Wow.
Now, will you please welcome to the stage another of Billie's really favorite singers, K.T. Sullivan. And thanks, David Gaines, too.
Now, I think the last time I saw Billie was also at 2017 Dutch Street dinner. She always looked fabulous. But I met Billie at the Players Club, and I think it was to see Darden Field. And Bill Dougherty always put on these shows in the 80s, mid 80s. I think the first one was 83, called Broadway 100 Years Ago. You were in one of those too, Jen. And he was such a great researcher because there really are no famous songs that we all know and love from Broadway 1883. But we learned them and we sang them, we put on these shows, and Billie was such a fan of his. And then later, of course, the Dutch Tree Club in '91. And our den mother of the Dutch Tree Club is here this evening, a good friend a dear friend of Billie's, Susan Dorler. Thanks for being here, Susan. We knew her long before she became a member of the Dutch Tree Club. But those nights at the Players Club, I remember, I'm going to sing something because I remember Billie always loved it when I sang off mic, and she did when you too, Bill, because the microphone loves altos and baritones, and she loved it. So being a tenor, Bill, I'm going to sing for you, okay? Imagine a tenor singing this, and we're going to try, because the acoustics are so beautiful at the Players Club, but I think they might be okay here too. So we'll see. Okay.
Tuxedo!
sweet again. I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. You'll in that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut trees, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, while I'll be seeing you.
David Gaines.
The chestnut trees, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
Okay, down here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Family, right? This is Billie's family, and beyond this room, there's so many. My name's Carol Moriello, and I know some of you, not all of you. Again, just echoing Bill's words, it just touches my heart, and I know it touches Billie's, that we're all here. I did write what I want to share with you because I don't know if I could get completely through it. I should do sound effects. All right. Thank you. What I chose to do today is actually write a letter to Billie and share it with you. And in that, hopefully, she'll be hearing me loud and clear as you also get to see how I've shared my life with her all these years. Many years ago, Billie actually posed this question in her poem, which she called a song, Make a Difference. This is an excerpt. She said, made a difference, made a difference. Is there any chance somewhere on the way I made a difference, made a difference? I cannot know, and who is there to say? Well, Billie, we're all here to say you did make a difference, indeed. I do miss her. My dearest friend, sweet Bibi, look at all the lives you have touched, all the souls you've nurtured, and all these hearts you've lifted up. We've shared some amazing moments together over the past 24 years since our beloved Christina brought you into my life And Christina was my life partner, just for those who have never met her. And thanks to Joel and Renee especially, Billie's nephew and niece-in-law. That was our linkage. So I cherish all our late night calls, the birthdays we celebrated with balloons and wishes come true. Also, we had moments where Billie even came up to Connecticut to decorate our Christmas tree and things like that. I cherish every single moment, and those fabulous meals that we shared at Candle Cafe, and also, of course, this famous or infamous special corner at Hane Sushi. From east to west and back again, you visited Christina and I wherever we called home. And in Christina's final days, 9 years ago, you rushed to her side to bless her with your love and gratitude. I am forever grateful for all your hugs and encouragement. You nurtured me with and carried me through my deepest grief until I felt strong again. You welcomed me into your inner sanctum on Friday nights for your Friday night special prayers, and yes, you prayed for us all of the time. I know this because I felt the power of those prayers quite often. I believe many of you also were aware of that energy that Billie would send out to you. And I will share one little quickie thing. Christina, myself, and Billie had other friends who did the same, and we would put all of her dearest friends, who I never met, on our prayer wheel. It was more of a spiritual, electrical connection, and we would just sing your names for those of you who are here I've heard about. So that continued always. And whenever I visited Billie once or twice a year, I would sit with her during those prayers, and it was amazing how long the list continued to be for all these years. So I'm sure you felt those special moments and wondered, where is this coming from? Yeah, it was most likely that evening. She would say, her reminder to me, often she would say, you're under auspices. And that was her way of saying, you're not alone. We are not alone. So as you, sweet Billie, peacefully and gently left your body, this is the phrase I heard in my head and in my heart. You're under auspices. And for the first time, I truly appreciated these words, because I sensed you were being greeted with love and tenderness. You already knew, Billie, the power of this divine embrace. You are the dearest friend, sister, aunt, cousin, and mother, grandmother, to so many of us young souls. So deserving are you, sweet Billie, of our appreciation and gratitude. May your eternal journey be rich with discoveries and expansive movement, satisfying your endless curiosity and deep desire to grow. And as you fly free now, allow all this love into your soul at the deepest levels and the highest heights. I am forever grateful for your presence in my life these many years, and for all the years yet to unfold with you by my side, and all of you in spirit. This is our bond. We're always connected. You've taught us all that. It is true. I welcome a visit from you anytime. You can drop into my dreams, join me for a walk around Cactus Park out in Arizona, or a hike in the desert. I know you'll be there whenever I need some of your keen insights or a gentle nudge of encouragement. By your example, you showed me that the only reason to be here on this earth well over 90 years is so to truly make a difference as you have done. So from this day forward, any of my successes will be dedicated to you, because each one of them will be Billie inspired. Through me and through all of these loving friends and family gathered here in your honor today, you will continue to make a difference as your spirit and your deep heart lives on in each of us and through us. So thank you, my forever friend Billie, my sister, my family. I love you, I miss you. And I look forward to this next phase of our journey together. And I will pick up that phone and have a chat no matter when I feel the urge. And I invite everyone else to do the same, because you will hear her sharing something wonderful with you. So thank you. Please welcome now the wonderfully talented Deborah Chernelli.
I love short people, by the way. It's just I'm wearing heels today. Just a couple of personal things before I read some beautiful comments from some very special people in Billie's life. Billie was truly an inquisitive person and always interested in learning new things and being engaged in the world. I mean, she had a passionate intensity. There was never a dull conversation with Billie. However, no matter what the occasion, our personal tete-a-tetes most always included two topics: the well-being of my own beautiful mother and my relationships, or lack of relationships, and there was nothing wrong with that. You could be perfectly happy on your own, Deborah. I am pleased that she and my mom had the opportunity to meet at one of our shows at the Triad, and to know that the close relationship we both shared with our mamas, was one of the reasons why our bond became so immediate. In addition, I have a brother with cerebral palsy, and so her mother's wonderful years of helping so many was a great connection for us. And now that I am a caregiver for them, the words from her book are a great comfort and wisdom for me. As for the relationship, Billie, thank you. You'll be pleased to know that I finally found my beshert, a nice Jewish boy named Joe, and he is a mensch, a real mensch through and through, so thank you. Now on to some other beautiful words. Billie had a lot of fans, and here's what two of them said after reading her wonderful book, Hello Mama, Goodbye. What a lovely tribute to a remarkable woman. Making the acquaintance of your mother was a deeply satisfying experience, but in addition, I was constantly aware of how rich and beautiful your writing was. I hope you're working on another book. Sheldon Harnick. Mm-hmm. To produce this beautiful book, Billie Biederman needed to have a remarkable mother, a colossal memory, and an engaging writing style. Every caregiver and potential caregiver should read this. Everyone else will also enjoy reading it. Hugh Downs. And on her 90th birthday, hello Hugh, on her 90th birthday, she got this message from one of her heroes. It's no small feat reaching one's 90th year, accomplishing as much as you have throughout the years as an author, theatrical professional, having given the world for which I thank you, the enormous talents of the legendary Carol Burnett and the late, great Jonathan Winters. I would imagine, however, your greatest accomplishment has been the mark of respect you showed your mother by taking care of her in her later years and then sharing that homage in Hello, Mama, Goodbye. Congratulations on this day of your birth for living your life to its fullest. You had to do that to me. No complaints and no regrets. I still believe in chasing dreams and placing bets. But I have learned that all you give is all you get. So you give it all you've got. I had my share, I drank my fill, and even though I'm satisfied, I'm hungry still to see what's down another road beyond a hill and do it all again. So here's to life and every joy it brings. Here's to life, to dreamers and their dreams. Funny how the time just flies, how love can go from warm hellos to sad goodbyes, and leave you with the memories you've memorized to keep your winters warm. But there's no yes in yesterday, and who knows what tomorrow brings or takes away. As long as I'm still in the game, I want to play for laughs, for life, for love. So here's to life and every joy it brings. Here's to life, to dreamers and their dreams. May all your storms be weathered, and all that's good get better. Here's to life, here's to love, here's to you. May all your storms be weathered, and all that's good get better. Here's to life, here's to love, and here's to you. Would you please, oops, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong page. Please welcome Billie's cousin, Cindy Mandel.
I'm not going to bother reading it.
Okay. Yikes, that's all I can say. How do you follow everything? And everything I had to say, somebody covered. Hane sushi, working the room, everything. Everything that she's done, you guys covered it. You covered it so well. So I'm just going to talk to you. She was my Aunt Billie. She was my cousin, but she was Aunt Billie. To my brother and I, we grew up knowing her as Aunt Billie because in that generation, we were older, so you were Aunt Billie. And my tante, who was her mom, was my great-great-aunt.
And my first recollection was when I met her, not at 1, but at 6, because I remember back to that long ago. And she was just my aunt, who was so kind and so good to me and never wanted to squash my dreams. And at that point in time, I had a great career aspiration to be a hairdresser, because I had Barbie doll, and I did a wonderful job on my Barbie, and she looked gorgeous all the time. So Aunt Billie came to the house, and she said, "Show me what you can do." And I did for about 2 hours. I used curlers. We used to tease at the time. I watched my mother tease her hair. And in those days, if you recall, women went to the beauty parlor every week, including my aunt. She had her hair nicely coiffed. And I thought it was gorgeous when I was done. And she looked in the mirror, and never would she squash my dreams. And she turned around and she said, "Look at how I look." And she said, "Paul Newman should see me now." And if you recall, she loved Paul Newman. Well, we all knew she had the crush on him. That's the first time I ever heard his name, though. I was 6. Who was Paul Newman? You know, and I mean, she did not take a comb the rest of the day. She never touched her hair. Harpo Marx with his nothing on her. I destroyed her hair. And my mother destroyed my dreams the next day when she told me the truth. And she was just too kind to let that go. So that was my aunt. And she'll always be my aunt. Although my cousins are here, and we're really cousins, as Sherry is working on the family tree, and I'm still very confused. To me, she's Aunt Billie. And she worked a room like nobody worked a room, and you guys all covered that. You covered everything. I mean, our last recollection of her working the room was my brother and I were at this restaurant some may have heard of in New York called Hanai Sushi with her. And there were 2 tables next to us, and there were some children at the table, and they were not terrible. They were just having a good time. But they got a little loud, and her hearing aid was starting to bother her. And I'm very shy. And in front of this, I can't believe I'm doing this. My brother and I sat there, and she nicely turned around and said, "You know, I'm gonna go talk to them." And we were like, "Oh no, please don't, please do this." You know, like, please, like, you know, I started to sink in the booth. I'm looking here, I'm looking there, please. Like, I didn't know what to do, and he was worse. And she gets up. We begged her not to, but she did anyway. She got up, she walked over to the table, and she was there for quite some time. And I'm not looking, I don't want to know. I was afraid, and she comes back to the table, and that was it, and everybody just sat, and it was nice. And about a half an hour later, this table gets up to leave, and they walk over to our table. She made friends, and they wanted to introduce us to everybody. I mean, she's the only one I know that could go and complain to somebody and come out with their best friend. You know, I mean, no matter where we went, no matter what restaurant. We went to a Broadway show one night. We're walking out of the theater, and she's arm in arm with this really nice-looking young man, and they're talking, whatever, and we get out. She introduces him to my brother and I, and told me all about what he does and what he did, and his kid. And I said, "Oh, so, you know, how do you know him?" "Oh, I don't know, I just met him." I mean, that was Aunt Billie. I mean, no matter where we went, no matter what we did, we went to dinner for my son's 30th birthday. He's a physicist. I religiously watch The Big Bang Theory, hoping someday I'll be able to communicate with him. But yet, my Aunt Billie, yeah, they carried on for about, I don't know, what would you say, Hal, an hour?
At least.
And were the words anything that you or I could even repeat or understood? She just had a thirst for knowledge. She learned everything. She could communicate with anybody, and at 90, almost 94, just days, you know, short of 94, I can honestly say she mastered the art of dying young, the very latest she could. And with that, Joel, I'm turning this over to my other cousin because it's your turn.
Well, I have to say it's really a pleasure to be here with all of Billie's friends and a few family members as well. I know that many of you know Billie for a very long time. I think I have the pleasure of I thought after the funeral that I had it together. But seeing all of these beautiful pictures and hearing all of these wonderful tributes to Billie just brings it back even more strongly. But I can say, I think I know Billie the longest, or she certainly knows me the longest. I've had the pleasure of knowing her for about 70 years. And I was very fortunate to have Billie as an aunt in my early childhood. I remember her leaving for California. I remember her coming back. That's a long time ago. And those experiences stand with me for a very long time. Among the things that Billie gave to me was a love for the theater. I was very lucky that Billie was so involved with the entertainment world. She was the one who took me to my first Broadway show and insisted that we have lunch at Sardi's. And I think also her perspective on the world. Clearly a cosmopolitan woman, great interest in travel, and I think I absorbed a lot of that from her, and I'm really grateful for that. I also think that it's come out in different ways, but I think Billie was really a woman ahead of her time. She had tremendous accomplishments in whatever she attempted to do, whether it was in the entertainment world, in publishing, and she was also a woman who really knew what she wanted. And I don't mean this to sound morbid, but when I think of her later years, I think one of her strongest desires was to live alone and to die in the apartment where my grandmother passed away. And with the help of friends and family, she was really able to do that successfully. People in this room, Leslie, I think the experiences that you described, sharing all of the theatrical experiences with her over the years, and I remember it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, where the city law had changed in terms of rent stabilization. And all I can tell you is, having followed up from that subsequently, that the process was a pain in the butt and had to be repeated every year. You know, it was those kinds of things that really helped her tremendously. Andrew, your own comments, everybody else's comments, I mean, Billie was the only 90-year-old woman who I think managed computers and the internet as effectively as she did. I mean, in that sense, I think she really was a woman ahead of her time, and I think all of the help that Andrew provided in keeping her on track really was tremendously important to her. Bob Essman, whose lovely thoughts we heard before, I know that Billie was forever grateful to you for all of the work that you did, helping her to get self-published and to do everything that she could with Hello Mama Goodbye and with Ludlow Street. Jamie and Jim, I can't tell you how grateful my cousins and I were for all of the support that you provided Billie in her last years. Without your assistance with her medical needs, I don't think that she would have been able to live the last years on her own. The other thing that I think Billie was incredibly fortunate with was the care that she got with the homemaids in her last year. Most of you know it was now about 3 years before she passed away when she had the scooter accident, which was really unfortunate because it limited her mobility so tremendously. But last year when she was diagnosed with her illness, and then her condition deteriorated over the last year, it became necessary for us to bring people into the house. And Marietta and Bing, her home care people, were just fantastic. And I think without them, her life would have been so much more difficult. All of this goes to Billie's attitude, right on the program. Her attitude was gratitude. And I can't tell you how much she communicated to me her appreciation for everything that she had in life.
She was a New Yorker. Yeah.
She was grateful to her friends, she was grateful to her family, she counted her blessings all the time. And I think she left us with an attitude towards life, which is something that I will always cherish. I just want to finish off with a vignette that I included in my eulogy at the funeral. And it was from her writings. I had never really had the experience of reading a lot of what Billie wrote, other than her published book and manuscripts for Ludlow Street. But when we were cleaning out the apartment, there were just files and bookbinders filled with all of her writings. And I just happened to open one and came upon one of the short essays that she wrote, which was titled something like How I Became Billie. And, you know, Billie was an unusual name for a woman of that age. And it turned out, I think most of you may know that her given name was Mildred, and everybody called her Millie. She hated the name Millie. In her writing, she said that At the time, Billie had a connotation that was less than savory. I was not aware of that. But I guess there are people who know that. In any event, she had really wanted to change her name for a long time. And this was shortly after the war, so I guess she was in her early 20s. And she was working for a company that dealt with advertising and promotions. And they had a contest to create a jingle for some product. And the winners of the contest got some prize. So there was somebody who she had been in communication with who won the prize, but clearly there was a problem in it getting to him. So he called the company and he asked to speak with Billie Biederman. So Billie hears him on the other end and she goes, "Billie, that's it." And that was the name that she decided she liked. Well, of course, in those days, you know, people did change their name, but it wasn't as common. And in terms of broaching it to friends and family, she wasn't sure about the reaction that she would get. Well, the person who embraced it the most initially was my mother. And my mother had had the experience of name change herself because when she married my dad in the 1930s, my father's family name is Szymanowski. And my mother had come to this country in 1920 as a greenhorn. And my grandfather, Grandpa Joe, said to her, "You are not going to be a greenhorn. And you are going to learn English." And she learned English, spoke it fluently. She lost the Polish that she came with, and the only other language that she kept was the Yiddish so that she could be able to speak with my grandmother. So before my parents were to be married in 1937, she said to my dad, "I will not marry you unless you change your name." So at the wedding, the rabbi announces, "Do you, Saul Sherman, take Mona B?" And it was kind of like, everybody was completely taken aback. So in any event, my mother had gone through the experience of name change. So when Billie told her about it, she was very supportive. And she said, the one who really embraced it was me. At the time, I was probably 2.5 or 3 years old, just starting to talk. And I had been calling her Aunt Millie. And one day she said to me, "You can call me Aunt Billie." So from that point on, I just started calling her Aunt Billie. And one day I said to her, "Where did Aunt Millie go?" And she said, "Well, Aunt Millie didn't go anywhere. I just changed my name. I'm Aunt Billie." And from then on, so, you know, when I think of this story and I think of my aunt's passing, I feel like she's in another place, but she's always with us. And I will miss her greatly. Okay, sorry to close on such a downbeat note, but now I think we're going to have an upbeat finale. Would you please welcome one of Billie's favorite couples, Connie Paschal and Jim Cummett.
I think Billie's name needs to change one more time. Love. just want to say I got to meet Billie about 21 years ago through my dear friend Bill, and I'm very grateful that you introduced me to her. And when Jim and I got together a few years after that, she was so over the moon. She could not have been more kind to us and more supportive. So this song is a song that we both feel kind of embodies who Billie was, and we believe it is her wish for all of you. And oh my goodness, there she is. She really is there. May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars, climb on every rung, and may you stay forever young, forever young, forever young. May you stand forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surround you. May you always be courageous, stand upright and be strong, and may you stay forever young, forever young, forever young. May you stand forever young. May your hands always be busy. May your feet always be swift. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of changes shift. May your heart always be joyful. May your song always be sung, and may you stay forever young, forever young, forever young. May you stay forever young, forever young. May you stand on May 9th, Billie made her final journey to reunite with her family. Every Friday night for 93 years and 10 months, Billie lit candles and and said her prayers, including her heartfelt wishes for all of those whom she loved and who she knew needed extra light and love, asking God for his blessings. My attitude is gratitude, she would say. We are, all of us, richer for Billie, having shined her light on our presence. She lives in each of us, and we will always be forever grateful for our Billie.
Thank you all for coming today. Thank you so much.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Billie. Happy birthday to you.
up for a lifetime. And it's in your program, and it says Billie-Biederman.forevermiss.com. Visit it, join that page, add any comments, add photos. This video is there. Look under videos. Of course, her Facebook page, it also continues to be up and live, which is on the back of your program. But go to Forever Missed, and you'll find Billie Biederman there. You can visit her anytime. So just wanted to include that. There's a family. There's a cute little family, right? Very cool, but it's just so look at their those are yours. Oh, no, they haven't. Oh.